Cannot believe I'm already saying this. Week 4 is here. Like, bro, slow down just a little bit. Week 4 power rankings are finally here. Well, I wouldn't say finally because the freaking NFL season has been going way too fast. But it's a lot different from last week. That's all I gotta say right here. So definitely stay throughout this whole video because I have a whole bunch of new teams on here. But let's get into it. Starting off with the number 10 team, they're brand new to this week's power ranking list, is the Green Bay Packers. We all know what Malik Willis did to the Tennessee Titans last week. He went 13 for 19, 202 yards and a touchdown. Also had a rushing touchdown with 73 yards on the ground. He was absolutely amazing. And, the Packer fans cannot be any more happier than what he did for the 2 weeks since Jordan Love has been out. The other thing to mention too is that defense was all over the place. He had 2 interceptions, one by Jair Alexander. He had a pick 6, and then Xavier McKinney. And they also had 8 sacks. So they completely feasted all over the Titans defense, the offensive line. And the Packers have just looked really good the last couple of weeks. They had a really good game against the Eagles in week 1. They are currently 2-1, and I think they deserve to be in this top 10 because all the other 1 and 2 teams, or possibly even the 2 and 1 teams, I think the Packers have just proven they should be in my top 10. Maybe because I'm a little biased because I'm a Packer fan, but who freaking cares? Packers number 10. The number 9 team, who was also brand new to my power rankings list, is the Seattle Seahawks. They are currently 3-0. Looking at Geno Smith's stats against the Dolphins last week, he had 289 passing yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions, so he didn't do too hot. But that defense against Miami, now granted, it is Miami's second and third string quarterback. They did not look good. Well, the Dolphins' offense looked horrible against them. I will say Zach Charbonnet did pretty good filling in the spot for Kenneth Walker. He had 91 yards on the ground and also two touchdowns. And that defense was all over the place, like I was just saying earlier. 5 sacks. They had no interceptions, but that defense only allowed 3 points, barely any yards against the Dolphins. They still had pretty good weapons, but yeah, they still had a really good game against the Dolphins. I know their defense is a little bit banged up too. Brian Murphy's on the injury list, not every week, but the last couple of weeks. And they are 3-0, like I just said. They beat the Broncos, they beat the Patriots, and of course the banged up Dolphins. But they got a really big test against the Detroit Lions on Monday Night Football. So we're gonna really see how efficient they are, how really good they are. But yeah, Seahawks deserve my number 9 spot. The number 8 team, also brand new to my list this week, is the Pittsburgh Steelers, also 3-0. Now, I know their offense hasn't really been looking really good. Justin Fields has been looking okay. He went 25 for 32, 245 yards and a touchdown, also an interception. But, this defense is where the Steelers are really good at. Last week against the Chargers, and the Chargers are also a pretty good offense too, so take it with a grain of salt. But they had 5 sacks and 7 tackles for losses. They barely allowed any freaking yards. And I know Justin Herbert was only playing for like a quarter and 2 until he got ruled out, and I think in the 3rd quarter. But still, they got nice little weapons on the offensive side. They got a really good offensive line, good run game for the Chargers. They completely shut out the Chargers. And speaking of running backs, both Najee Harris and Jalen Warren are both dealing with injuries right now, so that's something to really look out forward to, when it comes to next week. And I know their 3 wins. Again, their offense has looked really, really stagnant, but their defense is so good. They are my number 8 team. The number 7 team, they were last week number 6, is the New Orleans Saints. And I know, they finally came back to reality. They're not scoring 40 points anymore, but they had a pretty good game against the Eagles. Derek Carr only had 14 completions for 25 attempts, 142 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. Alvin Kamara didn't have too bad of a game. He had 26 carries on 87 yards. And, it sucks that the Saints didn't score 40 points again. They had such great momentum going into this game, and the Eagles have been slacking on defense, coming into this game, and that was completely reversed. I thought the Saints defense was pretty good going into the 4th quarter. They were holding them down to 3 points or 7 points or whatever it was. They barely even scored basically until the 4th quarter, and they completely collapsed against mainly Saquon Barkley. But I didn't want to put the Saints down too low because they're still a pretty good team right now. They faced a really good Eagles team. They could be 3-0 right now, except for the boneheaded mistakes they did against the Falcons. But, again, the Saints are 2-1. Really nothing to worry about here. They had really good wins so far. This was a really good game. They only dropped down one spot to number 7. Speaking of the Eagles, they jump up 2 spots in my power rankings. They are my number 6 team. And like I was just telling you a second ago, this team definitely could be 3-0, except for the boneheaded mistakes they made against the Falcons. They should easily be 3-0. And Jalen Hurts, I have no clue how to feel about him because he's been so wishy-washy. Looking at the stats, he had 29 for 38, 311 yards, no touchdown and interception. He has a lot of turnovers already, it feels like, this year. But, of course, the savior, again, this week is the Saquon Barkley show. This dude has 17 carries for 147 yards and 2 touchdowns. He was completely all over the place again. Of course, having that 65-yard touchdown run in the fourth quarter basically sealed the game. And, this Eagles team, of course, like I was just saying a second ago, they're really good. They should be 3-0, at least in my opinion. But their defense definitely still concerns me, but except against the Saints because they put up a really good game against the Saints, and the Saints offense has been completely killing everybody. So the Eagles, I feel like number 6 is a good spot for them. And I will give the Eagles credit too. I just want to say they had a whole bunch of players banged up. Devontae Smith got hurt. AJ Brown's been out for a couple of weeks. So I do want to say that real quick. I was also a really good win, like I was just saying, but I wanted to note the injuries because it was worth noting. Moving down 1 spot in my power rankings, they won last week against the Cardinals, is the Detroit Lions. They are my number 5 team. And speaking of injuries, oh man, they got some freaking injuries coming. They got Frank Ragnow, their starting center, one of the better centers in the league, is week to week with a partial tear. Marcus Davenport is reportedly out for the year. Sam Laporto had a low ankle sprain, so he's probably week to week. And they also got Brian Branch now injured. Dude, this team, these are all starters, by the way, really good starters. This was a brutal week for them with injury wise. Looking at the stats real quick, Jared Goff went 18 for 23, 199 yards and 2 touchdowns, 1 interceptions. But the main part of this Detroit offense was their run game, with Dave Montgomery getting a 23 carries, 105 yards and a touchdown. Also, Jahmyr Gibbs did pretty good too with 16 carries and 83 yards. And I will say they did pretty good, finishing off this game against a tough Cardinals offense and defense. Great Cardinals team, period. They've had a lot of good games so far. But, dealing with the injuries like Sam Laporta, Frank Ragnow, Brian Branch, dealing with those injuries is pretty crucial. So I will give the Lions props there. I just think the bottom or the top teams, the 1 through 4, are just a little bit better than the Lions right now, at least in my opinion. That's why they had to drop down 1 spot. The number 4 team dropping down 2 spots, the team that got absolutely humiliated, the Houston Texans. I know they basically had no running backs coming into this game, but ooh-wee. The Vikings controlled them. CJ Stroud, 20 for 31, 215 yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions, which is very rare for him. He was like one of the best quarterbacks in the league last year, not turning the ball over. He had 2 in this game, but the only bright side about this game was that Stephon Diggs had a nice little homecoming. He had 10 receptions for 94 yards. But their touchdown for the Texans was basically in wash time. It didn't even matter. The Vikings completely smacked them here. I still think the Texans are a very good game. I just don't know what happened here. And like I said, I know their running backs were out, Joe Mixon and Dameon Pierce. But poor Texans fans right here. I think they will rebound next week though. Jumping up 7 spots, the team we're just talking about, the Minnesota Vikings, who are 3-0, are my number 3 team. And yeah, they definitely deserve it here. Sam Darnold went 17 for 28, 181 yards and 4 touchdowns, no picks. Aaron Jones had a really good game with 19 carries and 102 yards. And of course, like I was just saying, the Vikings just smacked them all over the place, the Houston Texans. And that is not no joke because the Texans are, again, a very good team. And this is very rare that the Texans got smacked like this. The one thing I do want to mention is that Vikings defense. They had 5 sacks against a very good offensive line with the Texans. Also 2 interceptions, like I was just saying earlier. And, picking off CJ Stroud is a very once in a blue moon type thing. So I give the Vikings a lot of credit, even though I don't want to because, I'm a freaking Packer fan. But I have to face it. The Vikings are looking really good. They smacked the 49ers, they smacked the Texans, and they smacked the Giants too, who just won against the Browns. So we don't know what the freaking NFL is like this year. It's so weird. The NFL is just so weird. Sam Darnold, literally a top 2 quarterback right now. It's just crazy to even say that right now. But the Vikings definitely deserve the number 3 spot. And speaking of smacking around, the Buffalo Bills just put up a freaking mammoth of a game against the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're my number 2 team. Josh Allen had 23 completions, 30 attempts, 264 yards, and 4 touchdowns, and also 44 yards on the ground. He was probably the best quarterback this week, and like I said, even from the second quarter, this game was basically over. This defense also had 5 sacks, and one thing to note real quick, Damar Hamlin got his first career interception against Trevor Lawrence. And one little side note real quick too, Trevor Lawrence, ever since he's got paid, he looks like complete butt cheeks. I am so sorry. The Bills, of course, are 3-0. They put up a really good game against the Cardinals. They beat the Dolphins, and they just beat the Jaguars, and they have a really good game against the Baltimore Ravens here on Sunday Night Football. I believe it's in Baltimore, so that's a really good test right there for that defense. But the Bills, I've been hyping them up all year. I hyped them up before the year even started, and they're definitely living up to my expectations. They are my number 2 team. You guys don't even have to know, you had to look at it. The Chiefs are number 1, and I keep saying it. The Chiefs are number 1 until proven otherwise. They beat the Falcons 22-17 in Atlanta, which is a really good game, by the way. And Patrick Mahomes, he looked okay. He had 26 completions, 39 attempts on 217 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. The ground game wasn't too bad, with Carson Steele, 17 carries, 72 yards. So, that's a big deal losing Isaiah Pacheco. And this Chiefs team has, done pretty good overcoming the injuries. They've had injuries left and right on the offensive line. The wide receivers, Hollywood Brown, Isaiah Pacheco, like I was just saying. So I will give the Chiefs a lot of credit here. Now, I know there was a lot of definitely questionable calls when it comes to the referees and throwing flags and all that. I don't want to get into any of that because it definitely is a little bit suspicious. But again, the Chiefs are winning. It's not like the Chiefs never get any bad calls their way or good calls their way, whatever. So it's like it's 50-50. It does seem like it. I'm going with the fan bases here that the Chiefs get a little bit lucky when it comes to referee calls. But again, that's just my personal opinion. But I keep saying that the Chiefs are going to be number 1 until proven otherwise. But that wraps up this video. I know you guys don't agree with me 100%. I'm glad if you enjoyed this video. If you're still watching it, comment down below what you think. And yeah, I'm out of here. Deuces.